ready?
So it's November 13th, 2014. My mother is in the bedroom sitting on the bed with her husband, my stepfather. There's a knock on the door. My stepfather, Nicky, gets up to go to the door. He opens the door, and at the door are two people. And within 30 minutes, those would be the people that ended my mother's life. And it was the most beautiful death you could ever imagine. My mother was a very proud, vivacious woman. She had a second-hand clothing store in Montreal. And at the age of 87, she still ran it single-handedly. And she would say to her customers when they tried something on, no, that's not right for you. Take it off, put that on, that's much better. And everybody would listen to her. So when the doctor said that it wasn't, in fact, acid reflux, it was cancer, we were all in shock. My mother first lost control over her income when she had to close the business. And then as she started chemo, she lost control over her time. And then a little bit later, when she began to get very tired and stopped wanting to go out so much, she lost control of her social life too. Time went on. She lost control over her command in the house of being the woman who cooked and kept the house clean. And then she got too tired to get out of bed and she lost control over her livelihood. And eventually, when she lost control over her bowels, and her husband, who she'd always had a romantic relationship with, had to wipe up her mess from the floor, she lost control over her dignity. And then she set a date. We lived in Montreal, and in Montreal, euthanasia, medically assisted suicide, is legal. When she set that date, she took back an ounce of control over her destiny. And then she decided who she wanted to see and in what order she wanted to see them, and she took back another shred of control over her life. And then she decided what she wanted to wear, and she had someone go out and buy a beautiful long yellow dress. And the day before, she had a manicurist come in and do her nails and her toenails, and a hairstylist come in and do her hair in that blonde straight bob that she loved. And she took back control over her womanhood. And on the day, she decided where she was going to sit. Nicky was going to sit beside her. And when these two people from the hospital came into the house and asked if she was ready, she said yes. And when she left this earth, she left in complete control of her life once again. I don't know if any of you have read a book by Henry Marsh called Do No Harm. He was a neurologist, neuroscientist. He was a brain doctor in England, and he wrote a book about his 40 years of brain operations, and he said, the most difficult thing about watching people die is not the people who die, it's the people that won't let it happen naturally. If we just let it happen naturally, death can be a beautiful thing. And after my mother's experience, I never had an ounce of fear of death, and I plan that one day, not yet, long time from now, I plan to have a most beautiful death. Thank you.
So thanks for the wonderful talk, and I was going to ask, what was your reaction, not now, but at the time, and the reaction of the close family to her decision? When it was happening?
When she made the decision, it was quite shocking because none of us had ever experienced euthanasia, and I live in Malaysia, so it was quite far from Montreal where she was, but I was glad because it allowed me to plan my last trip with her. She didn't want me there on the day, So I went the week before, and when I said goodbye to her, was the strangest feeling, with my bags ready to go to the airport, saying goodbye knowing that the date was set for 3 days later. That's a really weird feeling. I looked at her and she looked at me, and it was like everything that needed to be said had been said. And I looked at her and there was no sadness. There was almost just two spirits that came together and just said, I love you. And there was not an ounce of sadness then, because it was so deliberate. So the initial thinking about it was shocking. But once we accepted it, it became a beautiful process too, because we all had some control over it. I highly recommend it. not this week, but I see someone in the back.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for the sharing, and I acknowledge the process that you went through. My question is this one. Have you experienced a different type of grief related to when we don't have any control over the way we go, and this one in which you were like, it was her decision, so you had some time to prepare yourself, and if you can kind of like share about your experience with the grief as something that was planned, and then you had kind of a certain time to come out and have a preparation for this, and if you had an experience with grief that I guess.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I hate to say it. I mean, I love my mother, but the truth is, I went back to Malaysia, and I said to my mother, I don't know what to do on that day. It was a Tuesday. What do I do? She said, go to work. And I did. And I remember I was at work that day. I was training the staff of UOB Bank in Kuala Lumpur. And I said to them, oh, today's the day my mother is dying. And they looked at me in absolute shock. And I explained it. And I had a little cry, of course, and we all did. They did with me. But I never grieved. I mean, I miss her all the time, but I didn't have that horrible grief at all, because we had it while she was alive. And it was so much better to grieve with her than alone. That's all I can say. Together, we grieved, and we knew the days coming. I didn't even talk to her on that day, and Nicky phoned me up right after, and he said it was wonderful. And he said to me, she woke up that morning happier than she'd been in months. She woke up happy. He said she was calm and truly, truly happy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm scared of this guy.
Be gentle. Thank you very much. It's been very moving, and I think it's very interesting to hear that Montreal does have a good way of dealing with very difficult situations, because a lot of places don't. So my question, death is a topic that we don't really seem to talk very much about, and yet it's very much part of life. In the past, it used to be spoken about a lot more, and it shaped a lot of culture and history and belief, and even much more recently, we used to have memento mori's, in art. There's pictures of skulls on tables with egg timers nearby and sand dropping through, and this is meant as a very positive thing. It's not morbid. It's not about viewing death in an unhealthy way. It's about realizing that the arc of life goes up and it comes down, and that's what life is about. And make the most of it whilst you have it, and think about it, and don't let it just collapse on you one day like a building that falls on you from nowhere. And do you believe that we have, from your healthy experience of an incredibly painful situation, do you believe that we should talk more about death, and that we should change our social attitudes towards it being semi-taboo?
Yes.